Well, welcome everyone to Wood Green Community Services here today on such a beautiful day in our Homeward Bound campus. I am really excited to be able to host this event today and in particular to have the opportunity to present Minister Milchin, who is the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, now Housing, and the Minister responsible for the Poverty Reduction Strategy. And the Minister is here today to make an exciting announcement, and we would like, without further ado, to please invite Minister Milchin up to the podium.
Thank you, Anne, and your worship, councillors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such a pleasure to be here at Wood Green, and what an amazing building and facility. And this is an example that we should all aspire to. And so that's one of the reasons why we chose Wood Green to make this announcement today. So Wood Green, through your First Step to Home program, helps provide the wraparound supports clients need to stay housed. And Wood Green is playing a key role in addressing our provincial goal of ending chronic homelessness by 2025. And that ambitious target was set with recognition that too many people in our society face obstacles that keep them in long-term shelter and it keeps them out of reach of actually a permanent home. But to reach our goal, we'll need a bold approach that will address the root causes of chronic homelessness and leverage the innovative ways many communities are keeping their citizens off the streets. And so we're here today to talk about how we're going to meet our goal together. Today, I'm pleased to announce that Ontario is making a dedicated investment of $90 million over 3 years to combat chronic homelessness in Toronto through our Home for Good program. For too long, the problem of chronic homelessness has been treated as an isolated problem of simply lacking shelters. Yet those at most risk of homelessness face unique challenges in finding long-term stable shelter. And the right kind of wraparound supports are what they urgently need. All of us in this room recognize that to remain housed, some people need extra support, like access to social workers, help with medication or addiction counseling. And with this targeted funding and support from the Government of Ontario, the City of Toronto will have the funding it needs to become one of the first communities in our province, and perhaps around the world, that will end chronic homelessness. At its core, that's what Home for Good is all about, ensuring Ontario is a province where everyone has the security and dignity of having a safe place to call home. And the first and most crucial step on that journey is ending chronic homelessness. And as we begin to solve that challenge in Toronto, we can leverage that same local knowledge, expertise, and innovation to tackle homelessness province-wide. Of course, every community is different and will need to develop and implement innovative programs that are tailored to their unique needs. This fall, a number of other municipalities across this province will be joining Toronto in receiving significant funding as part of the $200 million supportive housing investment. And while we'll have more news about those municipalities in the coming weeks, I can tell you right now that every single one of them has an innovative plan to help end chronic homelessness in their communities. By helping municipalities like Toronto deliver supportive housing programs to those who need them most, we can continue to build a stronger and more inclusive community throughout the province and a fairer society for all Ontarians. When we set our target to end chronic homelessness by 2025, some said it was a moonshot, a tough 10-year goal that seemed impossible to reach. But when you come here to Wood Green and hear the stories of some of the people that have been helped by the programs here, you know that it's possible, that it's doable, and it's happening already. We just need to provide more assistance to help more people. So we're here today with the plan and the investment to get it done. And communities across the province are ready to work with us to carry out this important work. Together, I believe we can and will end chronic homelessness in our province for this generation and generations to come. Today is a big step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Milchin. That is just an amazing announcement, and I know that ending chronic homelessness really does take additional support, and it's wonderful to see that the province has recognized that with this kind of investment, in particular, that kind of investment in Toronto, which I know now Mayor Tory would love to have an opportunity to speak. So thank you, Mayor Tory.
Well, Minister and ladies and gentlemen, I first of all would like to acknowledge the presence here of two of my colleagues from City Council, Councillor Mary Fragadakis, whose ward that we're in this afternoon, and Councillor Anna Bailau, who is the housing advocate here at the City of Toronto and is both a fierce and a fearless advocate for all of these issues related to affordable housing, related to homelessness, and I'm very lucky to have her help in this. And I'm, of course, delighted to be here with Minister Peter Milchin. I will just say that a couple of weeks ago, I said the housing minister was off to a great start because we had an announcement there that I think was a significant step forward when it came to helping us to repair the social housing stock in the City of Toronto. Now I think it's getting into a habit that you're making announcements that are going to be of direct, tangible, identifiable benefit to some of the most vulnerable people in the City of Toronto. And I think it's a good habit. And I hope that it continues, Minister, because I think this represents a strong indication of something I've believed throughout all the dialogue and the discussions that have gone on, and probably will continue to go on because that's just the way it is in this business, but that this Premier, this Minister, this Ontario government intend to take up an even more significant role in a very tangible way in housing, affordable housing, and in the related issue of homelessness. This is money, to be clear, that the city did not have before. And in terms of how long this need has been identified by the city and by communities within the city, and most particularly needed by people who are struggling, this was an issue that I remember debating when I ran for mayor in 2003. And I think I can say without fear of contradiction, this is probably the single most significant investment that has been made in this area since that time. And that is a long time ago. This is going to help provide support and housing for 2,000 people who are homeless chronically and living with mental health issues, among others, but are in need of that little bit of extra support. And when I say little bit, I'm not trying to minimize it, but I'm just saying it's sometimes a simple hand up that is going to help those people to change their life, whether they're people who need housing support services, people who have addiction, mental health, and other kinds of issues like this. And I'll point this out to you as well. The province came to us and said, what kind of support do you need by way of financial resources and other things? And we said that we needed $90 million to help keep vulnerable residents in housing and divert them from emergency shelters and help them to break the cycle of homelessness. And that's not because $90 million in and of itself is going to entirely solve the problem, but we said in terms of a manageable program that we could implement, because in the end we end up implementing most of these things, the amount that was cited that could make a real difference over the next 3 years was $90 million, and that is what you heard the minister announce today, $90 million over 3 years to help 2,000 people. Now, we recognize that the second part of this rests with us, and that is the urgency that comes with the investment of this money as soon as possible to help people. It's one thing to come to announcements, which we're happy to do, but it's another thing to get this money out into the city to help people. And that is why we've asked Councillor Bailau to ask city staff in turn to report to the council as soon as possible with a great sense of urgency as to how we can get this money put to work supporting the people that it is meant to support over time. This is all about fairness for people who are struggling. It's about our fellow citizens. And Yes, it's about making sure we understand and recognize and articulate the fact that shelters are not a proper place for people to live on a long-term basis. It is about cost effectiveness because indeed by having programs like this will be a better investment of those public resources, producing a better outcome than having it in emergency rooms and police calls and a host of other things. But mostly it is about humanity. It is about dignity. It is about saying to these people that are confronted by special challenges in their lives that we are going to support them as governments together, and that we're going to make sure that we create a pathway for them with the simplest of hands up sometimes to allow them to have a better life and to have a permanent housing and not to even be at risk of homelessness, let alone actually homeless. And I think it is one more of those examples that I think we all, those of us in public life, live to celebrate, which is proof of the fact that when governments work together, whether it's 2 governments or 3 governments or 9 governments, it doesn't really matter. When governments work together to focus on a problem and try to find some resolution to it, we can do great things for people, and that's what we're here to do. And so, Minister, I extend to you and to the government thanks from the people of the City of Toronto for the fact that we will now be able to, step up and do some things that are really going to help people who are struggling the most, and I think it's going to be a very significant step forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tory. As Wood Green, as has been mentioned, we are here, we work on the streets, we see the homeless, we see the issues, we deal with it every day. And so hearing today about this kind of investment is really an incredible boost to the people who work every day with homeless people and with individuals in this city who are struggling. Minister Milchin spoke a little bit about our First Step to Home, which is a homeless program, a housing program, a supportive housing program for men who've been living on the streets, who are senior with mental health and addictions. And our men have been living over 6 years on the street, and primarily rough. I know we have a couple who always say that they loved sitting around and living around City Hall because of all the people they used to see there. But they were there literally outside, and now they live inside with us, and they're making connections and making changes. Those same kinds of supports are necessary for others, and so here you're at our Homeward Bound campus. Homeward Bound is a program for women who are homeless, who have been living in the shelter, or who are precariously housed, single mother-led families with their children. And when we, years ago, we opened our first building in 2004, when we, years ago, learned about the number of families living in shelters or who were homeless, we were appalled, and we felt a real need to make a change and to do something to address that. We were an organization that had all sorts of resources. Why couldn't we pull those together and make a difference? And so that's what we did. Back in the early 2000s, we worked together, and with the support of Ed Clark and his family and others, we were able to start our first program. And the fact that we take the services and we wrap them around the individuals, and that they can meet their own goals and they can take it upon themselves to make the changes that they need in their lives is phenomenal. And when you go to one of our graduations, you see it's not easy. They struggle and they work hard, but they make it through. And it was so moving to us to see the kind of progress women can make. They don't just come out and are able to have a job, they have careers. They are in family-sustaining incomes, and now they can care for their families, and they're actually different people as they emerge. And so I want to introduce you to one of our graduates. She's going to share her journey with you and tell you a little bit about how supportive housing and wraparound supports really makes a difference. Pauline Bogle.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for giving me a voice today. I'm here to represent the actual tangible investment on a program like this. The demographic of women living in and surviving below the rate of poverty is staggering. Just add children and you have the recipe for a continued disaster. My situation that led me to Homeward Bound is not a very uncommon occurrence in society. It was divorce, plain and simple. I was on my own with my 2 boys, needing to start over and push the restart on our new family model as a single parent. We'd been out of the province for approximately 4 years. Returning home, your contacts and support sometimes dwindle. I had no idea what I was embarking on and how difficult the next chapter was going to be. It's never a little girl's dream to be homeless. It's never a mother's dream to have to wonder how or where your kid's meal is coming from and how you'll pay for it. And no woman dreams of going through life without an education and just getting by. But the financial burden is great in this city. How do I afford rent? Who will take care of the kids when I work? Will I earn enough? Do I have the right credentials to land a job that will sustain us? When things are too hard, you tend to stop trying. When there are too many hoops to jump through, you just stop jumping. I stumbled upon Homeward Bound and met all their criteria of being a single mom, needing a hand up to get started, in need of supports such as a place to live, daycare for my children, and yep, a free education, a college diploma to re-enter the workforce, educated in a relevant field today. It's not enough just to provide housing. Having a holistic program that provides all of the above, safe housing, daycare, emotional and trauma supports, and access to education gives women the tools they need to start over as the whole package. Without one, it's just a house of cards and will collapse, and the cycle begins again. The struggle to find all of the above in one shop should not be difficult. It should be the norm, and it should be the option. By providing all the supports required for a new beginning, you're not only stopping a cycle, but preventing another one. What we show our kids with the hard work that we put into regaining our dignity and self-esteem breeds healthier children of tomorrow and puts women back on that solid path again. This program offered me the security of a future, a safe place to live, and peace of mind that my kids will be cared for during the 4 years that I worked hard at getting back up. I graduated with executive and legal administration from Seneca College, and I've been employed with the Bank of Montreal for 4 years, all made possible with the full support of Homeward Bound and the full wraparounds that they offer. I wouldn't be the success I currently am without this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline, for sharing your journey with us. It really does demonstrate what supportive housing can do and what wraparound supports can mean to breaking the cycle of poverty. So thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Minister Milton, Mayor Tory, and Pauline back up for a photo. And then I think we're open for media questions after that.
We are at. I know you may have other questions of the minister or myself or any of the four of us. May I ask, out of respect for what we're here to do today, that if you have questions on this first, that we focus on that, because it is a big and significant announcement, and if there are those questions, then we can answer those.
Yeah, what sort of enhancements do you see on the other kinds of services that Pauline says that she received and helped her, that this is going to pay for? Right now, it looks as though Woodgreen's doing good work. What will this enhancement add to other people?
So this money that's being given to the City of Toronto to then establish the partnerships and the programs they need to do, this money can go towards some capital dollars to create and sustain the dedicated units for these types of programs, but it can also go to pay for the actual programs that provide the wraparound supports. We are providing the money to the City of Toronto. The City of Toronto will be administering the funds.
And just to that end, can I just say I think the biggest challenge sometimes with these programs is to take the result achieved in the program that was offered to Pauline and provided by Woodgreen, and I didn't say anything mistakenly, I had it noted at the top of my sheets about Woodgreen, and they are people every time we show up, we meaning the city, and need somebody to help us deliver things, whether it was housing for Syrian refugees or you name it, a long list, they're there. The real challenge is the capacity of those programs. Because, there's so many spots they can handle in a given day, given the staff they have, and given sometimes, as the minister said, the physical facilities they have. And so what this should allow us to do, and this is the work that Councillor Bylaw is going to do, working with city staff, but even more importantly, organizations like Wood Green, is find ways to make sure we can offer more opportunities to more people, as was the case with Pauline. And I think that's how you're going to help the 2,000 extra people. But the first challenge is find the organizations that have the right formula and that can offer the hands up and support them. And so that's what we'll be doing on an urgent basis, and then we'll be able to report to you exactly who's the beneficiary of this. I mean, the real beneficiaries will be the clients, but who are the beneficiaries in terms of the organizations that will be better funded?
Mr. Tory, is it possible that the money today will help in some way with the space crunch in the city shelters?
Well, I made allusion to that in my remarks, Jeff, in the following respect. I mean, I listed it, in order of ascending order of importance, because the most important thing about what happens today is the dignity and the sort of humanity that comes from being able to provide people with the help they need. But there are many people today, I've met them, I've talked to them, we see it in how we are trying to manage the shelters that are in shelters who should not be there. And the minister, one of the first things he said today was, and he's absolutely right, and I concur and commend him for saying it, shelters are no place for people to live in the long term. They're not meant for that, they never were. And so the answer to your question is yes. It won't happen tomorrow but that's why the urgency is there too, because not only can we provide the programs such as Homeward Bound faster to more people, but in so doing, we will be able to have those people not living in shelters where they were not intended to live and which are not the proper place for them to live, to have a dignified, proper life for the future.
Yeah, this is about helping lead people to permanent housing. It's not about funding more shelter spaces. It's about providing people with the tools and the pathways to get to that stable life that they deserve.
You're dealing with the urgent need, but are you confident that by the time people receive these services, there will actually be housing for them to go to that they can afford in the city of Toronto?
So later this week, I'll be making an announcement about us moving forward on one of the initiatives that was already announced previously, several pieces of provincially owned land which are being donated so that rental housing can be built on Grosvenor Street, in the Donlands. Those pieces of property combined can provide 2,000 new rental homes. So we are investing in these types of supports to help people get out of chronic homelessness. We're investing in the construction of new housing that will be available to those who need it, and we're also investing in the rehabilitation of our existing social housing stock. So we're covering all the bases that are required to ensure that we have fair and affordable housing and the right supports in this community as well as elsewhere throughout Ontario.
And if I could just add on the city's behalf that we already had a program that was doing the same thing, and we're delighted at an announcement. I hope the minister just didn't make it all, but there's more to come on that. But we had an open doors program, which was, among other things, putting up pieces of city land, some of which we have successfully put out to bid, and where housing is being constructed today. And I will tell you, I'm proud of the fact, while it's not enough because we have so much more to do, we will meet this year a goal set by the city back in 2009 and not met, I don't think, in any year since then, to build 1,000 or more affordable housing units. And there's still a long way to go, but if we start at least meeting that goal set all those many years ago, then we're going to be making a difference on making sure that the answer to your question is yes, when the programs are there that prepare people to be in permanent housing, there's actually some housing to go to. So I think, again, things are headed in the right direction. Again, we're doing this in partnership with one another, and that's exactly as it should be. So, any other questions anybody has? If not, we will thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to Wood Green, and thank you for having the courage to get up and tell your story, Pauline, very much.
Yes.
And thanks to the minister.